Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I am Tony, your host, and this is the place where we talk all things strange and unexpected in our reality. Today we're doing a random strangeness episode, and my co-host today is Anthony Hernandez. How you doing?
Good. How's it going?
Not too bad. How's life treating you these days? Not too.
It's delightful.
Keeping busy?
I'm here. I'm alive. I'm living life, pursuing the dream. So I can't complain.
That's it. And it's getting warm out, or it's been warm now by the time this airs. Mm-hmm. So it's fun and enjoying it before it starts getting cold again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's we only got a few months here, so we got to enjoy every minute. And then it's Halloween time. Then it's time to bunker down for the holidays and stuff, which I can't complain about that either because I love the fall. But you know, it's nice. It's nice having all the seasons too. I'll say that.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. Me, fall is my favorite time of the year, but I'm with you. Like, I do want to experience a good summer so that I can feel like I'm ready for the fall. Mm-hmm. So, it's good. Okay, random strangeness. We've got a few different topics to talk about today. I think the audience hopefully will enjoy some of these. They're completely different. I want to start off by asking you, what is your favorite childhood movie? Do you have one?
As a child, well, I know what was my favorite, but I can't stand it now, and that's Dumbo.
Really? Okay.
Well, I mean, you tell me. I think that's what my mom said, was that I was obsessed with Dumbo, but now I watch it and I'm like, what the freak? Dumbo, that's the weirdest flippin' cartoon I've ever seen. One of the weirdest ones, yeah. So I'm not a little weird for me now, but according to her, when I was younger, I loved Dumbo.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I try to think back as well, and I remember there was a cartoon when I was young called Hercules, and in fact, Hercules would put on this ring and it had an H on the ring, and it's exactly like this H on my chest right here. So it's very interesting, but I remember that he'd put on this ring and he'd be super strong, and it was a cartoon, and I loved watching that. So I don't even know whatever happened to that cartoon, but it was one of my favorites as a kid growing up. And I think sometimes these shows can influence us a little bit. I remember as a young person watching Batman Fight and Punch, and when I was a teenager, I got into a few fights, and I remember, why did my hand hurt so much when I punched things? Because in the cartoons and in TV shows, nobody ever hurts their hand, but I did. And I would just start to think, what's my reality here? This is weird.
Yeah, I've heard, I'm pretty sure someone I know did this, but, or maybe it was you told me this story. I can't remember, but someone either climbed up on a roof and either tried to fly or had an umbrella and opened it and tried to float down. I can't remember what the story was, but there was someone told me that story. Is that you?
That's your grandfather. So my father, your grandfather, when he was young, he was under 10, I think he was probably 7 or 6 or something. He lived in New York City, and he watched, I don't know what he watched. The story in the family is that he was watching Superman, but I don't think Superman ever did this, so I don't know if he was watching something else. But he went onto the roof of their apartment building, which I think was 6 to 8 stories up. He had an umbrella, and he was going to stand up there and jump off and float down with the umbrella. And in fact, they caught him, and they saw him up there, and everybody tried to get him to stop. And they finally had to send somebody up to get him. That's the story. Dang. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Impressionable, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see things.
As a side note, there's an interesting story, totally unrelated. Well, kind of related, but unrelated. But there was a guy who had an idea for a new parachute. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but he created a new parachute and this is back in like the 1800s, I think, and he wanted to test it. He was sure that it would be better than any parachute that existed, and it was, I don't know if it was the first one or if he was redesigning it. I can't remember the exact story, but he decided to test it himself by wearing it and jumping off the Eiffel Tower. And long story short, he put it on, he jumped off. This is right after a motion picture was created, and he was the first person recorded dying. Because he, I hate to laugh about that, but there's a video of just him going, whoa, boom, and just, hitting the ground. And I mean, it's really poor quality, but, that video makes you kind of jump. And anyway, that's what I thought of is again, probably unrelated to today's topic, but that was someone I was like, I got an idea. And, it didn't work out so well for him. So I'm glad my grandfather, I'm glad we're here, and he did not try to jump off that apartment building with an umbrella.
Agreed. That's for sure. Well, one more question. How about a fairy tale? Did you have your favorite fairy tale as a young kid? This is all leading somewhere, people, just so you know.
I don't know about fairy tale.
Seven
White,
Dwarfs,
Seven
or
Dwarfs,
something.
Peter Pan. I don't know. I don't know if I had a favorite. I mean, Cinderella. I don't know. I know all the Disney ones. I don't know if I necessarily had a favorite.
Well, it's interesting. I want to talk a little bit about this one. I've actually never watched it, and so I don't really know much about it. But Alice in Wonderland, never seen it my whole life, but I know it's a big one. In fact, they have had some more recent remakes of this movie.
That's weird.
I don't know if it's Disney, but somebody did.
Yeah,
but
it's one of these movies where you gotta makes a lot more sense if you're smoking weed or something.
Exactly. So what I want to do is pair that into our first topic, which is a condition called Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Sorry. And let's watch a short clip on that, and then we'll get into the discussion.
One night, you're just sitting alone watching sports on TV. Suddenly, that TV screen seems really far away, as if the room has expanded right in front of your very eyes. You panic, and so look down to see where your phone is. Only the device is massive, and your hand has shrunk to the size of a baby's hand. Oh God, you think. Did someone spike my Kool-Aid with the world's strongest drug? You get up to move, only now you're tiny and the ceiling seems 20 feet away. You can hear voices in the distance. You look through the window and there's a giant dog in the garden. It's got a purple face and orange ears. Your head hurts, and then, suddenly, you lose control of your limbs and just fall to the floor. Now time has stopped for you. What's going on? What you've just heard is how some sufferers of Alice in Wonderland syndrome have described one of their trips.
All right. Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Interesting, right? I once again, a lot of times I bring these topics up because I really do believe that sometimes people, or maybe in this case our kids, will say they're experiencing something and we just don't believe them. I'm going to give you a funny example, so I'm going to digress for a minute. When you guys were little, you'll probably remember, I made sure everybody sat down and ate. Okay? Kids they're notorious for just not eating, running around, hiding things. They just want treats. But I would make you guys sit down and eat. And I remember my one daughter, she's my youngest daughter, was complaining. And she always, some of the other kids, you guys would complain, I'm not hungry, I'm sick, or whatever it is. And she said, I feel like I'm going to throw up. And I said to her, well, then throw up, but you're going to finish eating. Do you remember what happened?
Yeah, I think she threw up.
She did. Right on me. Right? She threw up right on me. And I was like, oh. So from that point on, I realized I'm going to listen to her when she says something like that. Anyway, my point for bringing that story is, what if your child said to you, hey, Mom, Dad, everything's shrinking and getting bigger. My arms are getting long. My hands are tiny. And you might think, come on, kid, stop it. Come on, we got to go to school, or we got to go do this. There's an actual condition where this happens. Once again, it's called the Alice in Wonderland syndrome, and it's a brain disorder that impairs a person's perception of size. And I think that's interesting.
So to be clear, it's not actually them shrinking. It's just they think it appears in their own perspective.
Exactly. That's what's going on in their own mind. So it's also called Todd's syndrome or Lilliputian hallucinations. Hope I said that right. Individuals with the condition can experience alterations of body image or their surrounding environment whereby they perceive body parts or external objects to be bigger or smaller than they actually are. So
a lot of men have that. Hey-o!
Yeah, but what would you do if one of your kids came up and said something like this? I mean, I wouldn't have believed them.
Yeah.
I would have said, come on.
I mean, it'd have to be persistent. Like, this sounds silly to me. I'm not saying it's not a real condition, but like when I first heard it, I was like, man, we'll make up a condition for anything these days. That's my initial thought. Obviously, if it's real, it's real. I wouldn't believe my kids at first. I mean, if it persisted, then I'd probably say, okay, something's getting a little weird here. If you're not, can't break this imagination that's going on, then maybe, you should know if someone's faking it or not. I mean, someone pretending will give it up eventually. Won't continue with it, but to someone that really believes that, and I'm sure it would affect the way they grab things, right? It's like wearing drunk goggles. Your arms are still the length that they're supposed to be, but your perception is messed up. So you're going to think something's closer than it is or further than it is, or your depth perception would be messed up and stuff like that. So I would think that there's probably more than just someone coming up and saying that. There's probably some physical signs that, like, they're reaching for their coffee mug and they can't get to it, and it's right in front of them and they're thinking they're already grabbing it or whatever. That's what I would think.
Yeah, I think so. So these misconceptions or misperceptions are ones that start. A lot of the cases are starting around 6 years old, and that's not even true. It can be younger than that. But there's a case where there was somebody who got it at the first point when they were 6 years old. It was a boy, and if you go look into this, there's this story a couple places where he would, within 15 or 20 minutes of being in a dark place, like going to bed, he began visualizing objects as being far away and making them appear smaller. So it's interesting, it's unclear exactly what causes this condition, but it sometimes also is accompanied by bouts of epilepsy. It can be brain tumors, or if there's psychoactive medications. And it even says Epstein-Barr virus can or has caused this in some people. So, I mean, it's an interesting condition. I mean, I don't know. It's not, nobody's dying from this, but it is interesting. I just had this picture on here because you could look down, imagine you see these teeny little feet. You think they're yours, or huge feet. And, kids probably could get pretty freaked out by that.
Yeah. Well, it's like I've said in a previous episode, the human body, human anatomy is perfectly balanced to where we function correctly. So just the smallest thing to become unbalanced could wreak havoc on a human body, on the way you grow, whatever it is. And, I like to think of body parts essentially as hardware, right? Like you have your eyes sending digital signals to your brain, and if there's something that's tweaking that signal, your brain is going to interpret it a different way, and it might interpret some of the vision and things as that perspective being skewed. So weird.
It's true. It's a delicate balance that can be thrown off by all kinds of things. So it is true. One of the things that's maybe positive about this is it most commonly happens with children, but by the time they reach adolescence, it usually disappears. So that's a good thing.
Yeah,
so it only lasts for a while. It can happen into your adulthood. It's just extremely, extremely rare. There is an example of a 24-year-old woman that I found out about. Her name was Abigail Moss, and she experienced these, they called them attacks, since the age of 5, and they occurred almost every other day during her childhood. But then it became less frequent as she got older. But it's interesting because even as an adult, she still has it every once in a blue moon, maybe once, twice a year.
So she's not seeing life permanently like that. It's just like a. It's almost like you're. It's almost like you're having a. I don't know what you'd call it, like. Nervous,
kind of a hallucination.
Yeah, hallucination
or
a nervous breakdown for a second, or a panic attack. I mean, that's more of what I'm thinking is like it's like. It just happens randomly. It's not like you're walking around thinking your arm is hitting the ground and dragging the ground right constantly. So I mean that's good.
Yeah, that is good. So it's temporary and sounds like if they just relax, lay down, maybe take a nap, it'll correct itself. But it is interesting that happens. I mean, I think it's
enough to have a name for it. So I mean, it has to be, a real issue.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Next topic for us today. One of the things that we talk about every now and then is abandoned structures, buildings, homes, different things like that. So when you think of a castle, what do you think of? Like, what does it look like in your mind? Castle.
Dracula's castle. Brick.
Okay.
Moat. Transylvania countryside. That's the first thing, or like British, European.
Yeah, exactly. How about here in the United States? Do you think of that differently if you were to say there was a castle in some town or something like that?
Yeah, I would think of more like a mansion. We don't really necessarily have medieval castles here, but there are large houses or mansions that have a castle-esque feel to them or structure.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same. That's kind of where I'm at. This abandoned structure is called Lennox Castle. So this is an interesting place. Lennox Castle is in Scotland. It was built in 1812 for John Lennox Kincaid, and he was supposed to, they give a bunch of information about him. People can look that up. Long story short, the castle was his home, and he was part of an important Scottish family at the time.
Where did you say this was located?
It's in Scotland. Lennox Castle in Scotland.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying that was in the U.S. I was like, whoa.
No.
That doesn't look...
No.
That would be crazy to drive up on.
Yeah, that would be. So it's interesting with this picture. I mean, you're right. You look at this and it's amazing. I think there's a neighborhood off to the right a bit, but it's been there, for quite some time. And it was interesting because it was converted. I said it was owned by this Lennox family, but it was converted to an asylum for the mentally ill in the 1930s.
Jeez.
And then it was a hospital during World War II. So I think it's interesting.
What about now?
It's big. Well, let's go to a picture now. This is what it looks like today. It's no longer used really for anything. But before I even get there, I just want to say that the house before this point, but like around World War II, it used to accommodate 1,200 patients. And at one point, the house itself was just the nurses' homes. They lived there. So I don't know. Sounds like a lot of weird things happened in the way they handled that building.
It shifts from cool to creepy. Like when I come up on a castle, if it's been a castle and that's all it's ever been, and it's however many years old, I think it's a cool feeling sitting in front of it, standing in it, thinking like, what kind of stuff happened in here? What places are unexplored? And then you get into these old buildings where they've converted them into other things, and then it's like, oh, well, then now it's just creepy because this used to be a mental hospital. Some crazy stuff probably happened here, based on this picture, it looks like it's been modified a little bit, probably to be a hospital during World War II. I think you said, but
well, and it's interesting because clear up till. It was a hospital clear up till 1980s. So, it was being used for a while. And there is weird things that happened. Like there is stories of all-out fights and brawls going on with the people in that hospital. And to the point where some of the nurses and employees were chased away. And some of the individuals in there actually took control of the building. So it's interesting. A little bit of a strange history there. But the hospital, like I said, was vacated as a hospital in the 1980s. And then everything was officially closed off for people to use at all in 2002. Now, there was a fire that happened in there in 2008. And so it's pretty beat up now. It's kind of just a burned out hollow structure. But that's the Lennox Castle. So yeah, imagine you're hiking through and you see this huge building. It is amazing to see structures just sitting out there and not being used.
I was going to say
it always amazes me.
It's interesting. It's like, we're done with this one. Let's head out. And we just leave it. I do always think that's interesting because, this one's out in the middle of nowhere, so I can see how it can easily be forgotten. But, like, who owns the land? What's, it's not common that things just go unowned. And so someone knows about it, or maybe someone has a huge portfolio of land and they don't know about it, I guess. I don't know. But I find it interesting in places like this where it just falls off the map. And then also I find it, really interesting when you're like in the middle of a city or a suburb and you find an abandoned home that's been there for years. It's like no one wants to do anything with this.
Right, exactly.
Everything costs money, so I get that, but it's still strange to me.
Well, it makes you wonder, this prominent family, like, is it still in their ownership? Like, maybe this family isn't so prominent anymore, but they own all this land that they can just have that taken down and maybe do something else.
Or maybe the city took it back after it being a hospital or something. I don't know.
Yeah, good point. Okay. Let's hop on to our next subject. Our next subject is missing people. So there's a story, and if you go back far enough, it's definitely one that hit the news and was pretty a big story for a long time. The young person's name was Madeline McCann. And it's one of the most heavily reported missing person cases in modern history. So this young girl, she was 3 years old. She disappeared while her parents, well, first of all, they were in a resort, or they were in a holiday resort in Portugal. And so the parents went out for dinner. I think it's interesting. She's 3 years old, and I really couldn't find whether they left her alone or what happened there.
Wouldn't surprise me.
But she went missing at that point. So they were dining with some friends. So I don't know.
Maybe you're going to get into this, but yeah, you sent me this topic, and I guess kids go missing all the time. Is there something really weird about this one? Maybe you're about to get into it, but like, what is that makes this one so widely publicized? You know, obviously, I think these are the parents. We're showing a picture right now of the parents meeting the Pope, where they, you know,
they were getting a blessing for her to
there's a Netflix special on it now, right? That's so. Why this? You know, obviously it's sad, 100%, 1,000% horrible.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think there are some things that make it interesting, but you know how sometimes things hit a news cycle and it's like a wave. It just gets its older version of going viral, right? And everybody's now interested in the story. It's kind of like when you get a big story of like somebody missing, like Elizabeth Smart. Remember that happened here in Utah? But yet we have young indigenous women go missing all the time in Alaska and certain parts of the country. It doesn't even get a moment's time on the news. So, I mean, who knows, right?
When did this
But like
happen?
in this case, this was in 2007.
Oh, wow. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. She's never been found up to this point. But the story back in the day went a lot of different ways. I mean, like, it's kind of what you see with the news cycles and things like now. I mean, it's a story, and then all of a sudden everybody's hating on the parents because they think they did it, and it just kind of ebbs and flows. And I think that was part of what was happening with this story as well. There was numerous theories and speculation ranging from abductions by human traffickers to an accidental death, and the parents concealing or hiding the body. I mean, these are all the things that were floating around at the time, and nobody really knows what happened. But it was such a big deal that there were so many people that got engaged with this that it's a story that maybe some people will remember.
Is the Netflix special, is it new? Or, because I just saw the trailer for it as we, you know, or had mentioned it for this episode, just saw the Netflix trailer, but I didn't know anything prior to that about it.
Yeah, it slips my mind right now. I feel like it was either March 2024 is when it was coming out, I think. Not sure. I'll try to look through while we're talking here. But
I'm surprised.
In fact, we've got a short clip that we can play here in a minute, and maybe it'll say something there.
What was her name again? Madeline
McCann. McCann.
Gotcha. Just wondering.
Let's see here. Read a little bit here. It says here the Portuguese police initially treated her disappearance as a missing person case, but it soon evolved into criminal investigations. Suspicions and media scrutiny focused on the parents, leading to intense public debate and criticism of their actions leading up and following her disappearance. No conclusive evidence at this point for anything. The parents were not implicated, no real evidence that they had anything to do with it. Imagine how hard that must be for those parents to just have this public wave of accusation, just saying, hey, maybe it's you, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be very difficult as a parent.
Well, there's some...
But...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, again, who knows what's going on during these times, but for one of the first headlines that comes up is Madeline McCann's parents absent from vigil as Polish woman claiming to be missing girl attends. Right? So, just all kinds of crazy stuff comes out of the woodwork at this point. Like, you know, people will... there was a case years ago where the parents got heavily scrutinized, and something happened where, within the week of the child going missing, they were interviewing a parent or something, and the parent was kind of lighthearted, and it wasn't joking about the situation, but just didn't seem distraught. and all of a sudden that became like maybe it's them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
who knows? You know, I wonder why a lot of people turned against him. Maybe it sounds like this video might even show some like legit things that raise questions. But I'm sure there was also this whole other side of like, oh, the parents are going on a walk right now in the midst of all this stuff. Maybe they're going on a walk to clear their mind, but the media looks at it and says they don't even care. You know, they're heartless or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to say. I have not seen the Netflix show yet, but let's put this little clip on for everybody to watch right now.
The entire McCann case has become a phenomenon.
If you made a dozen movies out of this, nobody would believe them.
I've done thousands of cases. With the Madeline case, I've seen the worst things a human being can see. The worst.
It is feared that a 3-year-old British girl has been abducted in Portugal.
If your child isn't safe at a resort, where is she safe?
The media made their daughter the most high-profile missing child in the world.
Some individuals represented a significant person of interest.
Police say they are now treating a British man as a suspect.
They wanted me to confess. I actually felt I was being set up.
The police had suspicions that there was some collusion happening during the night that Maddie went missing.
This could be the breakthrough. Here it is, it all fits.
Statistically, it's likely to be someone who is in close proximity with the child.
The McCanns and their friends revised their timeline.
There is no way Kate and I are involved in this abduction.
The police leaked information to the press.
Those cops lied to me. Then there was the surprise. The head of the investigative unit was under investigation himself.
One startling element is the sheer number of sexual predators in the area. At the time,
It's very easy to move children to other countries.
human trafficking is a massive problem.
The value that Madeline had was really high. There's always something left to do till you find her.
Somebody knows what's happened to Madeline McCann.
Well, check that out. That's crazy, huh? Well, at least everybody can watch that on Netflix. I'll probably try to watch it as well. It's been a while since this happened. I'm curious what kind of details they were able to find for the docuseries or documentary.
Yeah, and like I said, so much crazy stuff happens around this. I'm looking at an article right now. Some lady came out and was claiming to be the little girl grown up now. She was on Dr. Phil. They did a DNA test, found out she wasn't. Just like all kinds of, man.
Why would somebody say that? That's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like,
I mean,
clearly,
maybe it's a delusion as well. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. It could be a condition. Somebody wants their 10 minutes of attention, I guess.
Just horrible to have to go through that. And as a parent, it's like to know that maybe your child has passed away would obviously be devastating, but to not know, torture. There's great the guy who started Operation Underground Railroad. Tim,
I forget his name too.
Yeah, Tim
Burton. No, Tim.
Not Burton. He's the director of Batman. Tim Burton, the original. Tim something. I can't remember his last name off the top of my head. Anyway,
yeah,
incredible story. Operation Underground Railroad. One of the things that's inspired the whole story is he met a gentleman who had his son kidnapped in a country in Africa. And I got to attend a little seminar once with them, and the father was there speaking. And at that point, it had been like close to 10 years since the kid went missing, and they still haven't been able to find him. And to hear him talk is just like, man, heart-wrenching to not know what happens, what happened to a kid. So I can't imagine what those parents are going through. assuming that they're innocent. We'll find out. Like you said, maybe we need to watch the documentary and kind of come to our own conclusion. But, man, horrible. I'd never wish that on anyone.
Yeah, I can't imagine really anything tougher for a parent. Really. It's the worst. Okay. Well, let's veer to our last topic for today's Random Strangeness episode. We're going to wrap up by talking about strange deaths. Now, I'm not just a guy who wants to talk about people dying, but I think we can learn some things sometimes by the misfortunes of others. And so when we hear these stories, the first thing I always think about is, is that something I would have done or put myself in that situation? So, there's value in some of these stories. This first story is... it takes place in Arizona. And as you can see, this is a lake in Arizona picture, and then you see these cactuses. And it was in 1982, and a man died out here in this area, Lake Pleasant, in just the strangest way. Now, before we get into the details of it, take a look at this picture. I never knew cactuses got that big. That's massive. That is massive. Look how tall that is. It looks like it's a 3-story building.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that there's a guy right next to it. Whoa. Yeah, there's a little guy, and it's probably the size of a 3-story building, if not. That's crazy.
I really never knew that. And I've seen cactuses. And
that's what's weird.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been in Arizona before. I don't remember seeing anything like this, but they're pretty big.
We were in Arizona once in Tucson, and my dad saw a cactus and thought it was fake, and so he touched it. And then he had all these...
Do not do that.
Yeah. And then
people do not do that.
He had like 25 prickly things in his thumb, and he was bleeding, and he was... anyway, we're all making fun of him, because we're like, why wouldn't you... We're in the middle of the desert, man. Why wouldn't you think that's real? Anyway.
It was crazy. Yeah, don't touch those things. It didn't look like there were that many pricklies until I rubbed my thumb against it. So, anyway, not the smartest guy in the world. So, okay. 1982, a man was killed after damaging a saguaro. I guess that's the name of these big cactuses. Here's another picture. I mean, look at this thing. It's huge. So see this little guy walking around here?
That's crazy.
It's a massive. So when I first heard this story and found it, I thought that's the stupidest way to die, but not when you look at this picture. So here's what happened. David Grunman was shooting and poking at a saguaro cactus in an effort to make it fall. When he was doing this, one of those arms of the cactuses came crushing down and fell on him. It weighed 500 pounds. One of the arms.
That's crazy.
Crushed him, crushed his vehicle, his truck, and killed him right there. Now,
That's crazy.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because who would believe this? This is so bizarre. But how many young people have you knew as a teenager when you were young? I'm thinking the same thing for me. Who would shoot something like that and mess with it? Oh, yeah. Half my friends would do that. And never thinking that arm, just one of those, is a 500-pound massive weight that could come down on you.
Yeah, I mean,
and so that's in fact
a tree, basically.
It is, yeah. So it is interesting because it's considered a Class 4 felony, and the possibility of a 3-year, 9-month maximum sentence if you try to knock one of these things down. But this guy, well, he got something.
Jeez.
What a way to go, huh?
Serious, that sucks.
Crazy. Anyway, the picture there, that's not the guy that died, but it's just for reference to see the size of this cactus compared to a person.
Dang. Strange.
So you're going to be careful when you mess with big structures, man.
Don't mess with big cactuses.
That's right. All right. Do you know anybody who gets very aggressive when they're playing sports? Like gets a really, you know anybody who just has a bad temper when they perform poorly? I have friends that do that.
Yeah, I know people that have bad tempers when they play card games, let alone real sports.
It's crazy. And to me, so the picture right here is a golf course. Now, golf is a pretty frustrating sport, probably for everybody, unless you're really good at it. But it's supposed to be relaxing, right? I mean, it's supposed to be, you're out in, nature, sort of. You're on a beautiful day, usually. You should be pretty happy and calm. Well, sometimes people get frustrated when they perform poorly. And Michael Scaglione, April 15th, 1982, he was out playing golf with his friends. And he was upset because he had a bad shot or something like that. And so it's interesting because what he did is he threw his his club at the golf cart. It hit the golf cart.
Bounced back.
The head of the club broke off, came flying back at him, and hit him in the neck, and severed his jugular vein.
Shoot.
Yeah.
What the heck? I thought this was going to be one where came back and hit him just in the right spot at the right perfect time. That thing would have had to. I don't understand how it could sever a jugular unless it was sharp.
Yeah.
Or maybe if it broke off, I guess maybe the sharp, if part of the iron was sharp, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it says here, let's see here. The club broke, the club head rebounded and stabbed Scaglione in the throat, severing his jugular vein. He staggered back, pulled the metal piece from his neck, which probably
never do that.
Yeah, don't do that, guys.
Never pull things out of your body if they're in them. Keep them there. Go to the hospital.
Yeah. And that's what they say here. Had he not done that, maybe he would have lived. But because he pulled that out, the blood just flowed. And he was dead in a couple minutes.
Just another reason not to play golf. It's too dangerous.
Yeah. And be careful. If you're like I said, I know people that get mad and do silly things, or when I was younger especially, when they didn't perform well. How many times was something like this in the waiting for them, right?
Crazy.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, that's the end of our strange episode today. Anthony, was any of these random strange topics one that you liked or stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, anything with kids is really heartbreaking to me. That's one that will be on my mind for a little while, about the Madeline McCann. It's not like that one was necessarily super strange, but anytime I hear stories like that, that usually creates a rabbit hole that I dive into and want to learn and understand more, because I think everyone secretly wants to help solve something like that.
Yeah.
So that's the one that I'll be thinking of after today for a little bit.
Yeah. I think for me, it's these last two random deaths. It makes you remember some of the things you've done in life that you go, oh, how many times did I do something, just not think about it? Mm-hmm. And who knows what could have happened. And for these two individuals, it just ended poorly. But who would have thought? And I think that's probably the thing to learn from this is, people, think carefully before you do something.
Keep your eyes open.
Yeah. Anyway, very good. Anthony, it was good hanging out with you this evening. And
always a pleasure.
Talking about random strangeness. Everybody out there, please follow us and continue to catch future episodes. Very soon we're going to have some interesting interviews coming up with some important events that have happened. And people will be sharing some of those experiences, and authors as well. So things are coming, and the channel is going to get exciting as we move forward. Other than that, keep in mind, the world is full of a lot of strange and unexpected things. Keep your mind, ears, and eyes open. And until then, be safe.
Peace. Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.